This video is going to cover creating an assignment using the most basic settings. Advanced settings will be covered in the Advanced Usage of Moodle course. To add an assignment into a course, turn editing on, click the Add an Activity or Resource link, and then select Assignment. Though there are multiple settings on the next page, you only need to pay attention to 5 areas to create a basic assignment. The first section is the General section, where you'll need to add your assignment name and description. The description is a great place to add your instructions for the assignment. If you need to, you can also upload additional files. This could include a rubric or a template that the students might be filling out. The next section to look at would be the Availability section. This allows you to set when the students can begin submitting their work, which they allow submissions from date and time, when their work is due, and then the cutoff date. The difference between the cutoff date and the due date is that the due date is when work should be submitted. Students can still submit work after this point, it will just be marked as late. But if the cutoff date and time is reached, no more work can be submitted to that assignment. Finally, there is a Remind Me to Grade by date, so if you'd like a reminder after the fact, you can set that up for yourself when you create the assignment. The next section is the Submission Types section, and this allows you to define how the students can submit their work to you. The default setting is usually for the students to upload a document as part of their submission, but you can also enable online text. This will create a text box, similar to what you saw in the description at the top of this page, where the students can type work and submit it to you. One feature instructors really seem to like is the Accepted File Types feature. This allows you to specify which types of files you will accept as part of this assignment. This can be especially helpful if you're a Windows user, but many of your students have Macs, and you typically receive things like Pages documents, which you cannot open on your Windows machine. You can either type a file extension in here, like .docx or .pdf. You can also click the Choose button and select a type of document. If this is a standard assignment, you probably just want to check the box next to Document Files, and then click Save Changes. The fourth section I would encourage you to review is the Feedback Types section, and this defines what type of feedback you can send back to the learners. The defaults can vary depending on your site settings, but it's usually defaulted to include feedback comments and Annotate PDF. Annotate PDF will take documents that your learners upload, convert it to a PDF, and then display it in an interface where you can annotate over top of it. Another feedback option is the Offline Grading Worksheet. This allows you to download an Excel spreadsheet, enter in grades and feedback, and then upload it back into Moodle. All the grades and feedback will then be dispersed to the appropriate students. This could work really well if you're doing something like an in-class presentation, but you're using the assignment activity to disperse grades and feedback back to the learners. There's also feedback files. This allows you to, let's say, download your student work, annotate it in Microsoft Word using track changes, and then upload it back to them as part of their feedback. The last section to pay attention to when you're creating a new basic assignment is the Grade section, and this lets you define how much the assignment is worth. It's typically defaulted to a point value of 100. If you're using grade categories in the gradebook setup, you can also select your categories here. You can also define a grade to pass. There are additional features here that may not be as relevant for the early assignments that you create, but just so that we've covered them, blind grading will hide the students' names from you as you're grading. If you choose to use this feature, remind the students to not put their names on their papers. You can also use the option to hide the grader identity from the students. This might be helpful if you're teaching in a class that has multiple teaching assistants who are assisting with the grading and feedback process. And finally, Grading Workflow lets you manually control the workflow of grading within the assignment. What that means is, if you leave this off and you grade an assignment, the learners are notified immediately that they have a new grade and feedback. If you wanted to notify everyone at once, enabling Grading Workflow turns this into a manual process where you can grade the work, but then you have to manually update the status to released so that then all the learners would be notified. This might be useful in a situation where you are working with multiple TAs because you can assign specific learners to those graders. It can also work well if you want to notify all of your students at once instead of having them be notified piecemeal. So that might work very well for an end-of-term assessment. I know this seems like a lot, but to create a basic assignment, really all you need to add in is a name for that assignment, when it's due, what type of submission your learners can add, how you're providing feedback to them, and what sort of grade is associated with that activity. There are advanced settings on this page, but for most assignments, these are the settings that you'll need. When you're done, scroll down to the bottom and click Save and Display.